I'm Dan McGuire, one of the officers of the Nebraska Wind for Schools Consortium, which is also known as the Repowering Schools Program. Our consortium president is Gary Thompson, who's the chairman of the Nebraska Public Power District Board, and vice president is Jeff Kaposas with Olsson, well-known and highly respected engineering firm in Lincoln and the Midwest. Jerry Hudgens, UNL Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, administers the program. Our exhibit booth has more information if you stop by there. I'll make a few comments before we get on to the panel. So renewable energy, including ethanol, wind, and solar energy, is a very big deal in Nebraska, in the economy, and it's growing. I've worked in renewable energy policy since the 1970s, so this is great to see. A 2018 U.S. Energy and Employment Report from the National Association of State Energy Officials found that traditional energy and energy efficiency sectors employed 6.5 million Americans in 2017, up from the previous year by 2%, and adding 133,000 new jobs, or 7% of all new jobs nationwide. A 2019 analysis by University College London researchers concluded that almost 9.5 million Americans, or about 4% of the total workforce, are employed in the green economy, which generated $1.31 trillion in annual revenue, or about 7% of U.S. annual GDP. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, released a new report in July 2019 titled The Wind Energy Workforce in the United States, Training, Hiring, and Future Needs. Authors NREL's David Kaiser and Suzanne Tegan with the Center for the New Energy Economy in Colorado reported in their executive summary that employment in the wind industry in the U.S. increased 32% from 2015 to 2016 and 5.6% from 2016 to 2017. In 2017, wind energy technician was the second fastest growing occupation in the U.S., following solar installer as number one. Findings from the DOE's Wind Vision show that if the 20% vision deployment scenario were reached, which is 20% of U.S. electricity from wind, that if that were reached, the U.S. will require from several hundred to more than 1,000 new education and training programs. Educational requirements range from high school diplomas to PhDs to post-grad professional degrees and apprenticeships. The employment opportunities include construction, manufacturing, professional and trade workers, wind technicians, attorneys, and engineers. My own IT and network security company in New England has 14 employees. 50% of them are IT engineers. One of our clients is an electric generation utility, and without those IT engineers, we wouldn't be able to take care of that important client. So our distinguished panel today will present valuable information on training, hiring, future needs, so those interested in career opportunities can look at those opportunities and see which Nebraska institutions of higher education have these programs and some of the companies that are hiring them. So on to our panel. Chad Johnson is Senior Education Specialist for Nebraska Public Power District, which is the largest generator and distributor of electricity in Nebraska. He received the National Energy Innovator Award in June of 2019 from the American Public Power Association. He's involved with STEM labs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let's welcome Chad Johnson.
Thank you. So part of what I do is I'm the education specialist, so that means I travel around, we do programs at schools, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, some colleges, right, John? And so we go and we teach the workforce skills necessary to get these jobs. So one of the things that we're going to do, if you want to pull up the website there, the website that we're going to go to is pathways.nppd.com/career wheel. And when we pull that up, it will actually show us the job description of our wind turbine technician. This is actually the materials taken right out of our HR's job description. There are probably 20, 25 of these different careers that we have up on this interactive career wheel. So it shows you the skills that you need, shows you the salaries, some of the duties, the job demands. So these are a really cool resource for students to start to look into, where or what skills do I have and where would that fit within this industry. For us, we're very, we really like the technical students, not just the engineers. People sometimes think that an electrical utility only hires engineers, but those that go to those technical schools are extremely valuable to us. Our wind turbine technicians, we only own one wind farm, and that's in Ainsworth, Nebraska. And so because of the incentives and the process for how wind farms are built in Nebraska, we don't actually own the facilities anymore. So it's kind of we are not growing the amount of turbines that we own, but the amount of power that we buy from other companies is growing every year. So as you look through some of this stuff, it's all comes down to the ability to think. One of the things that we teach our kids is the idea that figuring it out is an employable skill. We want people to be able to see a problem, come up with an idea, and solve the problem. Especially when you're 220 feet up in the air, right? You don't want to have to go back down the ladder to get the tool that you need, so you got to solve that problem. One of the things that we really like to do, and I'll get this set up as we're going. I just got to get the orientation. These are virtual reality headsets. Stick your head right in there, and you're standing on top of a wind turbine. So what we really want to do is we want to give students as much of a real experience as you can get so that they can find the path that they want to take. So yeah, go ahead and just pass those around. So as you look through this, you're actually standing up on one of our wind turbines that is in Ainsworth, Nebraska. It is a 1.6 megawatt turbine. It's off, but if you look off to your left, you'll see one that's turning. We go through all the science behind it. We go through how it works, and then we let people decide whether or not they could actually do this job. For me, going up the tower was way worse than standing out on top to do the video, but it's a neat experience, and it's a great way for us to start to demonstrate how you can go from, this middle school science project that you think you're really excited about, all the way through the process to getting a job. And we call that the Pathways to a Technical Future. And that's our education program. And as we go through that, we're doing more and more things to actually tie that into our real-world experiences. So we'll be having questions at the end. So if you have questions about our program, you can ask those at the end. Yep. Sorry, I'll go grab that. I guess, unless you want us to ask questions now. Okay.
Just do it that way. I think that's good.
Perfect. So,
Okay. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate that. Our next speaker is Belinda Fowler, the Environmental Assistance Coordinator at Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. In her role at the department, she works with new and expanding businesses in conjunction with program staff during initial phases of the permitting process. Ms. Fowler has a graduate degree in community and regional planning from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Let's welcome Belinda Fowler.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. I'm happy to be here and share some of my background, some of my history with Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. 20 years ago, I interned for our agency actually when they were still Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality. I'm here to present to you the different career pathways that we have available within our agency, maybe some of my story on how I got started, and what continued to propel me to be the large generalist that I am today in working with all of our programs. We've really spoken over the last couple of days about renewable energy resources and the jobs associated with those, but I'm going to cover kind of the umbrella view of the environmental side and now also the energy side that occurs behind the scenes at a governmental agency. So back in 1969, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio caught on fire. Most people are familiar with this as the beginning of environmental regulations across the nation. I picked this picture because it really impacts all of the different areas of the environment that we think of that are real and tangible, whether it be the air and the smoke going into the air, whether it be the land and the wildlife that are impacted as far as natural resources, or the water. Obviously, it's not normal for the water to be caught on fire. So I encourage those students that may be looking at this video in the future to think about how do you feel about the environment in general? Where is your passion? And to take a hold of that and to develop your network outside of school and figure out how do you capitalize on that if that's truly the area of work that you want to do into the future. 50 years later, this is what the Cuyahoga River looks like on the right-hand side. You don't really see the intangible or the energy use that's going on in that. So now we get a holistic picture of our environment. And this is what it looks like 50 years later. So our environmental regulations have made an impact in the world that we live in, and it's all about the balance of environmental, economic, social, and keeping that all tied together. Making sure that you're making enough money when you get out of school to support your family. So some of the career pathways that we have available in our agency, there's a long list here, right? We need some of those technical skills. We need some of those PhD students. We need some of the master students or the planners and professional folks. A lot of our pathways are STEM related, but not all of them. We rely really heavily on our staff assistants within our agency to get information out to our permitted facilities, to make sure that they're staying within their environmental requirements, making sure that the quality of the environment is what we need it to be for future generations. I'm going to try to read through this quickly. I only have 10 minutes, Dan, so keep me on track, okay?
We'll manage.
All right, so interns and seasonal lab technicians, we hire them. We're actually in the process of advertising them now, and they will take those applications, review them, and then conduct interviews in about February for May onboarding timeframe to start doing surface water sampling for us. We have biologists, we have engineers in every capacity that you can think of, whether they be industrial, chemical, mechanical engineer, water engineers, wastewater engineers, and design engineers. They have to review those plans for those facilities as they're coming into our agency. Geologists, we'll get into this and some more specifics in some of my future slides. Chemists, hydrologists, understanding how water moves within our environment and the impacts of that, the impacts of the use of that water and what that looks like. Limnologists, so the study of lakes and rivers and the biota that live within each one of those. I had the privilege as a new intern 20 years ago with DEQ to be exposed to an entomologist. Why do we need somebody who specializes in bugs? Because bugs tell us about water quality in the environment. Meteorologists, and why does that become important? Obviously with renewables, the wind and the solar, absolutely the things that we're talking about, the climate change impacts that we're experiencing, emergency response measures, all of those things come into play. Animal science majors or ag science majors. Nebraska, large economy, based in these two areas. We're dealing with livestock waste control facilities, management of the waste, nutrient management plan, Costco barns that are coming in. We need people with these specialties to come to our agency to give us their expertise and that have been on the leading edge of what you're receiving as far as education in your school systems. We have attorneys on staff, accountants. We have the business end of our governmental agency that we need to take care of. Public health specialists, drinking water, well water. Where are we drawing our drinking water from? So it's a great big global picture right across our agency. So without going through the rest of this list, I know you'll have the presentations available to you. Take a look at these. I think we can explain it better in pictures. And that's my entire presentation is pictures and tying all of these pieces, parts together. So this top picture here in 2019 in the spring, we all know that we experienced major flooding. We're interested in emergency response. We were very much tied into our state emergency operations center, the flooding that was going on, those hydrology degrees that we were talking about. This is Spencer Dam right here. This failed in the northeast portion of Nebraska because of the ice flow and the jams. Lots of damage there. And they were looking for that hydrology and the inundation zones and so forth. Here's wastewater treatment lagoons out on the landscape. Drinking water supply systems. What does it take to engineer and design that and review the systems that are included on the inside that we're not seeing when we turn on our faucet or our tap? So I told you I got my start at Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality long ago. This is actually where I started. I was out in these waders at 105 degrees, walking our streams up to my chest in mud, picking fish out of the streams, doing electrofishing along the way to get a sampling of the biota that lived there. And then we were in the lab and we were running tests to make sure that the algae that was growing there didn't have levels that cause adverse health impacts. We hire men, we hire women. So we don't discriminate, obviously, on the basis of gender, and girls can do it just as well as the guys can. So it was a lot of fun. It was very, very hot. And we had a great time doing it. So memories that lasted a lifetime, and it really gave us a start in the agency. So air, we talked about public health specialists. Again, we're looking at smoke, we're looking at pollutants, we're looking at haze. This happens down in Kansas every year. We're monitoring the haze from prescribed fire burning, which is a great landscape management technique, and we're seeing what those public health impacts may be as it comes up north across the state of Nebraska. We need engineers for air quality to understand the internal workings of internal combustion engines that may be installed in industrial facilities, and understanding what does that look like with a FLIR camera. That's a technical skill, right? You want to know infrared what that looks like as far as pollutants that are being emitted that we may not be able to see with our naked eye. We need people that are able and willing to climb those high stacks and get up off the ground, stick a probe into the stack and do compliance inspections for facilities that have regulations to make sure that the pollutant loading that's going out to the air is not too much. And finally, land and energy. Landfills contribute to a lot of the renewable supplies for our electric utilities across the state. If you guys have never ever done a landfill tour, I highly recommend that you do so, because even though it's garbage, it's really, really cool. I didn't know a loader couldn't go over garbage stacks more than 3 times before that level of waste started to rise back up. That's a lot of weight going over that garbage. But the other thing that's happening is those biological activities are happening underneath, and all of the gases that are coming out of that are then being shunted off to create more electricity. So if you ever have the opportunity to do that, I highly recommend that you take it. The renewables, I'm getting more and more exposure through our wind and solar conference this year. This is my first time. And then also through our energy office. But I do know that we have grant and loan programs. We have administrators for those programs. So if folks want to get involved on more of the administrative side and getting that help out to facilities and out to Nebraska families, we have those career pathways available to us as well. I think it's fun. I think it's very challenging. I think it's very rewarding to reach out our hands as a governmental agency and say, yes, we truly are here to help. And we're here to help the students, help them to make the pathway into the future that they dream of.
Thank you very much. It's a great presentation, Belinda. Our next speaker is Chris Jorgensen, a project specialist for Olsson, nationally known, recognized, employee-owned engineering and design firm with a rich history of success. Chris specializes in quantifying, evaluating project-specific risks and potential impacts to wildlife. Chris has a Bachelor of Science degree in Animal Ecology from Iowa State and a Master's of Science degree in Wildlife Ecology from UNL Lincoln. Please welcome Chris Jorgensen.
Aiming in the wrong direction here. So today I'm here to speak to students about possible job opportunities and what it's like working for an engineering and design firm that works with renewable energy clients in the energy industry. But before we get there, I think I have a couple thoughts to offer. And the first is, when I was a student, a high school student, college student, I often received questions from family members and friends, especially on holidays and family get-togethers. What do you plan to do once you receive your degree? And when I told them I was going to become a wildlife ecologist, that question came up even more frequently. But, I guess my thoughts for students out there is, one, find something that you really enjoy. That's sort of the age-old answer to that question, is find something that you absolutely love to do, and then something that's going to keep your interest for 30 plus years doing this job day in and day out. But then number two, make sure that you have opportunities not only now, but in the future. And one common theme of this entire conference that we have seen is that renewable energy is not going away anytime soon. And in fact, we're seeing increasing demand on a global scale and within the United States. And so from 2018 to 2050, renewable energy is projected to increase from 18% to 31% in the United States. If we look at some of our more traditional energy ways of generating energy, like coal, oil, and natural gas, nuclear, those types of power are probably going to decline a little bit over the next 10 to 15 years, but they are still going to be tools in our toolbox, as many of the discussions that were had today and yesterday with SPP. But the one thing that we do see is that this yellow line here, that renewable energy trend is only going to increase outwards to 2050. If we break renewable energy down into the different sources of renewable energy, hydropower, geothermal, municipal waste, some of those older traditional approaches are still going to remain in the background, but we're not seeing a lot of growth. If we look at if we look at the light blue line towards the top of the graph, that's wind energy. And that's projected to continue to grow at a pretty fast rate over the next 5 to 10 years. And then the rate is going to slow down according to these findings from the U.S. Environmental Information Administration. Now, with that said, if we look at solar power is expected to see the largest growth over the next 30 years. And wind capacity currently is actually projected to meet some of the record levels that were set in 2012. So the wind capacity additions in 2019 and 2020 are expected to at least meet those records that we saw in 2012 here. So with that said, my point to these two slides is that there's definitely potential in the future. There are opportunities to jump into a career in the renewable energy side or the consulting side, working alongside renewable energy clients in the future. So I want to tell you a little bit more about my firm. And so I work for Olsson. We're an engineering firm that was actually started in Lincoln, Nebraska. Olsson started in 1956. It was founded by John E. Olsson. And in fact, his very first project was a cemetery plat in Seward County, Nebraska. That project yielded $56. So from 1956 to today, we are now in 8 different states. We have about 1,100 to 1,200 employees, and we're basically a fully functioning engineering and design firm. So we have engineers, architects, designs, wildlife biologists like myself, and we basically can work on a project from A to Z. Our philosophy at Olsson is that we are a team-based, purpose-driven engineering and design firm. Our projects improve communities, our people make it possible. So Olsson really believes that they exist for their employees, and our employees exist for our clients. And we take that, literally, and we become an extension of our clients' projects as they come to us. We try to look to ourselves as an extra arm for our clients and come with innovative solutions that can help solve their problems and get to their end result. So recently, as of 2018, we achieved the top 100 engineering firm status in the country. And we exist to improve communities, make them more sustainable, better connected, and more efficient. Simply put, we exist to leave the world a better than we found it. And being a wildlife ecologist, that mission really hits home. And so, with that said, we have basically 6 main markets that we divide our business into. And so we have energy, transportation, land and facilities, government, water, and telecommunications. And out of that, we have about 5 services that we offer. And within these services, it just keeps on breaking down into all these different disciplines. But in general, broadly speaking, we have engineering, environmental, field services, technology, planning, and design. My background, again, is a wildlife biologist. So I play in the environmental realm, and we get to work from anything from land development projects to renewable energy projects, working along with state and federal agencies on their concerns and needs and questions that they have. And so it's a really exciting endeavor to work for a consulting firm. I do have a brief video. We'll see if we can get it to play here. Pushing buttons. So as this video is playing, this video was produced by Brad Wilkin. He's in our design studio, and he does a lot of visual simulations to show clients and the community what projects will look like after they're completed. And so using 3D visualization, such as this image right here, we can kind of see what the project's going to look like. We can see in the wind energy realm what shadow flicker is going to look like. But we do a whole lot more than that on these renewable energy projects. So anything from civil design to all the wildlife studies, to 3D modeling, drone services, and I can go on and on and on. I do encourage everyone, if they have any questions, please contact us. Go to our webpage and ask questions. Feel free to contact me as well. So moving on, getting more into the details of our environmental services. So our environmental team here in Lincoln is about 20 to 24 individuals. But we do have environmental teams throughout Colorado, Oklahoma, and the other states that we occupy. And so our environmental services, we have experts in biology, hydrology, geology, natural resources, and our mission in the environmental team is to work with our partners to navigate and proactively comply with complicated, ever-evolving regulatory processes, regulations, and permitting requirements at the local, state, and federal level. So this can be for like a wind project the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, it can be the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. These are regulatory drivers that have us, that we have to go and make sure that our clients are complying with when they're developing a project. So we serve our community, or clients and communities, by thoughtfully incorporating the environment into project design, allowing civilization and nature and the natural world to exist. Excuse me. Let me grab a drink of water quickly. So that's our mission statement in the environmental team. And so, again, getting back to the renewable energy side, if we're looking at a wind development, we basically break down the environmental component of developing a wind project into three basic components. And the first one is pre-construction surveys. Second one is during construction monitoring and compliance. And the last one is post-construction monitoring. Pre-construction surveys, we work with our clients to, again, meet all of the requirements and regulatory requirements and guidance documents that the state and federal agencies produce, going into building a wind farm. So that includes starting out using broad strokes, looking at the landscape design or landscape composition, seeing where the project's located, checking out threatened and endangered species, looking at if there's any critical habitats in the area, and sort of doing this desktop assessment. Once we complete that, we get into the really fun stuff. We get to go up in helicopters, we do bald and golden eagle nest surveys, we do breeding bird surveys, and then my bread and butter is taking all that data that we collected during pre-construction surveys, analyzing it, making sense of it. So by definition, wildlife ecology is the study of wildlife and their relationships to their environment. So we can take that definition, we can understand how wildlife near or within a landscape that a project is potentially going to be constructed, and we can identify areas where those wildlife will likely occur, and then consequently we can identify areas where wildlife will likely not be, and we can make appropriate siting decisions for wind turbines where we're going to minimize, avoid, and mitigate impacts to those species. So then we get to during construction monitoring and compliance. And so when a wind project is being constructed, again, we still have to make sure that our clients are meeting all the regulatory needs and all the regulatory requirements brought forward from the state and federal agencies. And so we'll have folks on site, we'll have folks doing wetland monitoring, making sure that we're avoiding wetlands or complying with the permits that we receive for a project. And so then as that project evolves, once it goes to operation, then we go to post-construction monitoring. So here's where we get to see where all of our planning and all of our efforts, all of our strategic approaches to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to wildlife, whether or not we did a good job. And more often than not, we see that there are very minimal impacts if there's proper siting decisions up front in the pre-construction phases of the project. So we'll have folks on staff, surveying the wind facility or solar facility and checking to see what the impacts are. So we're looking for birds, we're looking for bats, we're seeing if there's any mortality, we're quantifying that mortality, and we're reporting back to our client as well as the state and federal agencies. So that is a really quick overview of a very complex process of going through all of the siting decisions and compliance for a wind project. So getting back to Olsson as a larger firm, here are some things that we look for students when they're interested in applying to work for our company. And one of them is collaboration. We want students that are willing to collaborate, work together. Every single day, it's a team atmosphere. So when you're in your team projects in college and undergrad and grad school, you might not always like the folks you work with in those settings, but just remember you are going to apply those skill sets in the future in your future jobs. And collaboration is super key and critical in everything that we do in a consulting firm. So eagerness to learn. We want folks that are excited to come to the table and work with all sorts of clients from different backgrounds and have really unique projects and that kind of thing. So eagerness is really an important element as well. Strong skills, that's sort of self-explanatory. We want folks that are really good at what they do. And then lastly, innovative. We want innovative folks that can bring cutting-edge solutions to the table to solve complex issues that our clients bring to us. And so with that said, if folks are interested or students are interested in working or becoming an intern for Olsson, please do contact us. You can go to our website, olsson.com. All of the resources are there and available to students and folks just looking for job opportunities in the future. So be sure to look for us at upcoming campus events. We do a lot of job fairs. We do a lot of outreach. And general applications are accepted. So we do have job opportunities posted on our website, but we do accept general applications. So if you're interested in our firm or would like to work for Olsson, feel free to just send us your application, and there's a means to do so on our website there. And then finally, set up job alerts from our website. So Olsson will let you know and notify you via email as job openings become available. So we try to make it as easy as possible to get involved and be a part of our company. And then lastly, I wouldn't have this quote if I didn't believe it myself. I'm not HR. I work for Olsson, and I truly believe that this is who we are. So our people are the greatest asset. Some companies say it, we really mean it. At Olsson, we exist for our employees, not the other way around. We have more than 1,000 employees, and we're looking to hire team members who value collaboration, demonstrate personal accountability, and enjoy what they do. And so with that, I guess we can take questions afterwards. So.
Thank you. That was an enlightening and inspiring presentation.
It's a lot there.
Our next panel member is John Liewer, instructor for the Wind Energy Program at Northeast Community College. Prior to teaching, John gained his technical experience working as an industrial and commercial electrician for 15 years. As an apprentice, journeyman, foreman, service technician, John graduated from NECC in 1999 with an AAS in electrical, construction, and control. Welcome, John Liewer.
Like I said, so for 7 years at Northeast, I guess I've seen a complete turnaround in the industry. It was pretty challenging back then. A lot of the attitude was still toward you don't need education, just go get a job, earn your stripes in the field, just go get a job, go get a job. But I've seen a complete shift. I've seen industries promoting education, investing in education, and a lot of companies are starting to require that education in their employees. So with our wind energy program, we try to focus on skills. It's a technician. It's a maintenance technician, industrial maintenance. There's a certain set of skills that can be transferred between wind energy, auto mechanics, plumbers, any kind of trade requires a lot of these basic skills. So we focus on the skills and we lean it toward wind energy. So we start out, our freshmen come in and we have a wind energy fundamentals. It gives them some of the history of wind energy, the way it is now, the future of wind energy, but it really goes into the basics, the nomenclature, the parts and pieces that make up wind turbine, what the job entails. A big part of that is safety. So with this course, we have a lab that accompanies it, and we spend an entire semester working on climbing safety, rescue, self-rescue, everything that goes along with working at heights. We focus on electrical skills, so it starts out with basic electricity. We've got to learn what electricity is, how it reacts, and how it works with its components. That leads into motor controls. which is just the very basic motor controls, the analog stuff, the contactors, the switches, lights, things like that. That leads into electronics 2. The electronics 2 gets more into capacitors and solid state devices and kind of the higher level version of basic electricity. Into control systems, which is a lot of the solid state devices used in control, proximity sensors, things of that nature. That works well with programmable logic controllers. PLCs is kind of the brains of a control system. It takes the inputs, processes it, and tells the outputs what to do. It makes things happen from a computer. And then the SCADA system, that is supervisory control and data acquisition. That is looking at the information that these inputs are giving us and the counters and all the data and keeping track of that. And also being able to make those controls and make those decisions and report on them and stuff like that. And communications. Communications is a big part of it. The mechanical skills. So another completely kind of different skill set, but we have the mechanical systems. That's where our students get in, and they get to learn what tools are, what fasteners are, rigging, all the safety that goes in along with that stuff. Your basic mechanical skills. So we can take students ground up, students that come in that have never worked on their bicycle or changed oil on their car, anything like that. We can get you going, get you caught up. Fluid fundamentals is the hydraulics. Okay, so hydraulics, pneumatics, those are all kind of fluid fundamentals. Working with pressures and cylinders and compression, and there's a lot of tools that use hydraulics, a lot of wind turbines. All wind turbines use hydraulics in some fashion. And it's found in any kind of maintenance setting. Mechanical systems too gets us more into the bearings and the gearboxes and alignment and some of those higher level skills that companies are really looking for. That's one of the second year programs. Airfoils and composite repair. That's kind of a look into a different aspect of wind energy as a possibility. We kind of touch in airfoil design, get a basic understanding of that, basic understanding of how the repair process works. From there, students can go into a whole new direction in the wind energy field. Safety skills, that's kind of first and foremost. Like I said, very first semester, we spent an entire semester in lab working on some of those safety skills. Second semester, they have an electrical and operations safety class. It's basically, it is a 10-hour OSHA course. They come out with their 10-hour certification if they complete it. First aid and CPR. That's something every industry is requiring as we go along, so we make sure they leave with those credentials as well. And like I said, the wind energy fundamentals, safe access and rescue. Alternative skills. So like I said, with the airfoils and composite repair, that's an entirely different branch that they could venture into if they wish. Power generation distribution, that kind of lends itself more to the substations and installation portion of a lot of that equipment. Wind turbine siting. That gives them a taste of what kind of issues are involved with siting a wind turbine or a wind farm. Goes into the environmental stuff. It goes into a lot of the regulations and government permits and stuff like that. And we take a look at all that. And that's important for the techs to understand. It is another offshoot of what they can get into. But a lot of those issues are something that technicians will experience all throughout their career. They've got to deal with spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plans and stuff like that. So we try to prepare for, what they're going to face and beyond. Soft skills. So these are the skills that are going to follow you no matter where you go and what you do. There's a couple of different levels of technical math. Math is very important to a technician. It's used in a lot of different ways, as it is in life. Just sets you up good for life. Computer applications, again, that transcends any kind of career you might have. Personal finance, You know, these are all the skills that are, this comes with a college education. This is why it's an associate's degree. Human relations, you've got to be able to work well as a team, work well with others. Critical component of it there. And business communications, you've got to, as you're working with a team, you've got to be able to communicate with that team. And it really does help foster communication and cooperation. With our program, we like to, I'm very proud of the fact that we're a close-knit group, and we try to make sure each class gets that sense of belonging, and I've got some of them here walked in just in time to support me here as I give the presentation. But we try to do things. We've got a wind energy club. We do community service. We do fundraising events. We have parties. We try to do fun things together and get everybody together. But it really does. It gives us a sense of inclusion, community involvement, responsibility, things like that. Fun and family. I'm very proud of the fact that every year I've got students that they get out in the field and they stop in and say hi. You know, they'll stop in on their day off if they're in town, say hi, or they'll speak to the class, things like that. Very proud of that fact. And of course, jobs. You know, these guys just talked about jobs, and he mentioned that it's the second fastest growing, you know, technical field in the country. With that, there's rapid expansion. So our students can get in the field, and you've got a chance for moving up the ladder quickly. And one thing I always brag about every chance I get is from one graduating class, I had 2 different students from that same class work their way up to a lead tech on a site within 2 years. Within 2 years of graduation. So very proud of those students, and it's a testament to their work ethic and their drive. Probably more so than it is a credit to us, but that's an illustration of how fast it's growing out there and how fast you can work your way up. And a lead tech is going to make darn good money. So a lot of different types of jobs. So you got site tech, traveling tech, and when I say traveling, it can be domestic around the United States. It can be overseas to Europe, tropical islands, South America, Canada, quite a bit. You can travel the world as a travel tech. But you can also get into construction, blade tech. If the interest suits you, you can get into siting and you can get into the environmental side. The possibilities are kind of endless from there. But that's kind of the way we design our program. It's skill-based. We want students to have options. We don't want to just put students on a wind farm site being attacked that's kind of, you know, you're locked in. So we want them to have options. We want them to be able to go anywhere and do anything. So we try to prepare them for anything. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Very encouraging, and hats off to Northeast Community College for having the first wind technician training program in the state that complements the growing wind industry so much here. Final speaker is John Pierce, Program Director for Energy Generation Operations at Southeast Community College. John has a Bachelor of Science in Business Management. Over 35 years, John has been electronics technician, engineer, manager of various companies in Nebraska. John developed the Energy Generation Operations program at Southeast Community College and has been the program director since 2008. Welcome, John.
Well, my slideshow is right there. I did not bring a slideshow because I thought I would just talk about what everybody else has not talked about yet. So thank you for setting me up, everybody. And I'm old, so I'm going to stay sitting. So the Energy Generation Operations Program, as Dan alluded to, is a little bit different. In fact, it's quite a bit different. As far as we've been able to tell, it's the only program like it in the United States, maybe in the world. We are training people to operate power plants. And I usually have to explain what that even means. So for the people watching the video, hopefully high school students watching the video, operators are the group of people that basically manage the entire operation of a large industrial facility. And it frankly doesn't matter very much if it's a nuclear power plant or a wind farm or a water treatment plant or a pulp and paper mill or whatever it is. Operations is operations. And we designed the program to fill the needs for the energy generation industry, and it does that very well. Most of our students graduate and go into operations positions at various energy generating facilities. But as I mentioned, we're getting opportunities for our graduates from the craziest places that have nothing to do with energy. But it turns out that the skill set that we're providing our students works in any kind of industrial facility. Pipeline companies, refineries, water treatment, heating, cooling plants in universities and hospitals, breweries in the southeast, pulp and paper mills in the Pacific Northwest. It's really grown way beyond our expectations. And those skill sets, the operators have to operate any kind of industrial facility are primarily people skills, management skills, basic knowledge of systems, pumps are pumps, fluid is fluid, flow is flow, valves are valves, heat exchange is heat exchange. It doesn't matter very much really if you're making electricity or you're making fertilizer or dog food or whatever it is. Those skill sets transfer very nicely. And we included renewable energy in the original portfolio, and we still have that. We don't go into as much depth as Northeast does, John's program at Northeast Community College, but those skills are basic skills. It turns out that the top wage for any of the 60 programs at Southeast Community College are coming from our program. So the average starting wage for our graduates last year was right at $27 an hour. And we've also recently included course curriculum and simulator systems for electric transmission and distribution, which turns out to be the highest paying employers out there. And they're now scrambling for our graduates very aggressively. I believe that the last job posting I saw was just under $40 an hour to start with a $10,000 sign-on bonus. So they're lucrative positions. Operators are like the air traffic controllers of an industrial facility. They're the ones that make the big decisions. They're the ones that tell everybody else what to do. Our folks are the ones that say, turn it up, turn it down, turn it on, turn it off, go fix this, go fix that. That's what operators do. They manage the entire facility. So those are very responsible positions, and they're responsible for multi-billion-dollar facilities and the proper and economic operation of those facilities. So that high level of responsibility is the reason for the high wages and the job opportunities that are everywhere. Speaking of the energy industry specifically, I call this a recession-proof industry, because when the economy goes south, the energy industry does not lay people off. They just can't do that, because it takes so long to get people qualified and trained to work these positions that, you know, if you shut off a plant for an outage for a month, you can't lay people off, because if they don't come back, you can't start back up again. So these are very, very stable lifetime career opportunities with a very high payback. And another statistic I'll throw out there is the placement rate. The average placement rate for Southeast Community College across all 60 programs is about 94% placement. Our program, I like to brag, is about 300 to 400% placement rate, because we have 3 to 4 postings for every graduate. And I'm sure yours is probably similar. I know the demand for energy workers is way, way beyond the supply. So that's another reason that this industry is very stable, very lucrative, and very rewarding. It's challenging, it's fun, it's interesting. Every day is different. There's never 2 days alike in this business. So if you're interested in a lifetime career with a very low investment, very high return on investment, this is the right career path. That's all I have.